you name it. Jean Houston, etc. Thank you for the book. And everybody who works in this field is reporting that there is an epidemic of awakening happening spontaneously all over the planet. By that I simply mean awakening means an epidemic of people realizing that although the person they took themselves to be does exist in a certain context, it exists in a mutual agreement of meeting between people, it's not really the idea of that person who is experiencing this moment. You see? Understand what I'm saying? Right? There is actually a person called Arjuna, and it's a story that goes along with this body, and it has things it's done in the past. Some of them are a little regrettable, and some of them are okay. And there's another story over there called Brandy, and various stories in the room, and there is the possibility to meet in those stories. So in terms of stories, that does exist, but it is not that story that is hearing the sounds in this moment. It is not that story who is seeing colours and shapes. It is, in fact, awareness which has no limits. And in its limitlessness, it is not separate from the awareness which is experiencing reality in another human being. Let's check this out for a moment. Randomly, just turn to somebody close to you. Just find somebody and have a little look. I suggest that you look not at the person, but more like into the person. So look into one of their eyes. Do this without speaking. Do this without speaking. Just look into one of your partner's eyes. Just look into one of your partner's eyes. And just for a moment, inquire, genuinely inquire, who or what is looking back at you. Someone or something conscious is experiencing you now. Someone or something is looking through the eyes and seeing your face. And then just intuitively, without thinking too much about it, just intuitively, what does it seem like is looking back through the eyes at you? If you could look through these eyes into that which is aware, what does it appear to be like? And you're going to need to trust the first answer that comes, because it's going to blow your mind. And it's not the same answer we've been taught in school, but if you just instinctively let yourself experience that which is looking back at you, what does it seem to be? Okay, good. Let's look back this way now. We're doing the kind of McDonald's version tonight. It's a crash course in awakening. So just what's the first impulsive answer that comes? Love is looking back at you. Say it again. We just need to wait for this train to pass. Just one moment. Let's just let the train pass so we can hear each other. Are these trains very long? Okay, tell me your name. Bonnie. Bonnie said that what she recognized was looking back at me was myself. She looked into the other. It sounds a little loony, doesn't it? But she looked into the other and she went, holy smokes. The packaging is different. The packaging is different, but what is looking through the packaging is myself. How many people had a glimmering, a shimmering awareness of that you were meeting yourself? Okay, good. Well, dear friends, this is not hallucination. All over the world, the gates are being flung wide open to the truth of who we really are. I've guided tens of thousands of people into this kind of inquiry. Everybody, all over the world, come to the same conclusion. That which is experiencing this moment has no limits, has no content. It is awareness. And it's also love. Two words for the same presence. And when we tune into another human being, we discover the same awareness, the same love, the same infinity looking back. This dear friends, is a direct realization of oneness. That's what oneness means, is to look not at another human being, but through the shell of another human being into that which is conscious, and to realize that there is no separation between what you recognize yourself to be and what you recognize the other to be. Now, why is this such an urgent big deal today?
We need to honor ourselves and everything that supports us and that is around us, because it's all
in multiple, let me just wait again. In multiple different dimensions now, multiple different paradigms, we are seeing the breakdown of a way of living in the world. We are seeing that breakdown in many different ways. Recently, in October 2008, we have seen it financially. It's kind of amazing that anyone's shocked, because it was sort of obvious, wasn't it, that this had to happen. You know, if you keep inflating and inflating the value of things way beyond the cost of producing them, which happened to stock prices rose, completely speculative. It wasn't tied anymore to the actual capacity of a company to earn money. Real estate prices were driven by speculation, not by the actual cost of building a house, you see. There was a time when if you wanted to buy a house, you'd pay a few $1,000s for the lot, you'd pay a builder to build it, and that was the value of the house. Well, recently we saw speculation driving that to multiple times the actual cost of construction sometimes. Well, it was obvious that that kind of speculation bubble sooner or later had to burst, especially if it was all being funded with credit that was basically being created out of nowhere. A financial system was no longer tied to anything real except mutual agreement that we can just make more, we need more. Well, obviously that had to crash. Isn't it true? Well, now that we see it, maybe a little painful if you had investments in real estate or the stock exchange, but nevertheless, looking back, how many trains can have? You get a train like every 2 minutes?
Those are our thoughts.
I see. Oh, noisy thoughts and trucking. But actually, the recent events in the housing market and stock exchange are really the least of it. You may also be aware that there have been significant shifts in global weather patterns, global temperatures. Of course, there's some debate about what causes that. There is the Sarah Palin camp, and then there's science. But most people seem to, by this time, seem to agree that human behavior is at least either partly or largely or totally responsible for the shifts in global warming. This, if you believe scientific speculation, we've only begun to see the impact of that on human life and more generically on the life of all beings on this planet. We have adapted ourselves over our entire genetic history to certain climatic conditions. We're not adapted to dramatically changing those conditions.